Welcome back to Square Off. You might remember former state lawmaker Lorenzo Sierra's life and death battle with COVID-19 in 2020. It was chronicled by 12 News and other media outlets here in Arizona. We also followed it on social media. Happily, Sierra lived to tell the story in a new memoir. The book is Fight Like Hell: Love, Politics, and the Will to Live. Lorenzo Sierra, welcome back to Square Off.
Thank you.
I was thinking about that, the Churchill's famous line, where you're going through hell, just keep going.
You just keep going. And, one of my favorite things that Biden ever said was, faith sees best in the dark. And we've gone through some dark times.
You had to learn that over and over. You're a political consultant by day, no longer a state lawmaker. Why did you decide to write a book?
I've had this story in me, whether it was, the death of my mom, Rhonda's cancer, my COVID. And, well, in lieu of therapy, I guess I wrote a book. So it was that catharsis of letting it all out and then finding that there's some parables here that might help people say, hey, I see myself in this. Maybe I should tell my story. Maybe I should find my truth. And that's what we did. And I think we put something together here that shows that even through the darkest of times, hope and love win.
And there are a lot of stories in here that will resonate. You write at the start of the book, though, this is a love story.
Mm-hmm.
How is that the through line in the book?
Because no matter what happened to us, whether it was the cancer, whether it was COVID, the bond between us, that love between us, got us through, and it was the purpose for which we wanted to survive. Whether it was Rhonda, who was really not going to do cancer treatments, but she promised her daughter, okay, I'm going to do this. She had seen her husband die from cancer. She knew what it meant to have cancer at a late stage and to have some loved one watch you wither away. So it was love that made her fight and love that got her through. And for me, it was that promise that I made to her right before they put me on the ventilator. I'm going to fight like hell to come back to you because I'm not going to make you a widow again.
Yeah, I want to get to that in a minute, but I want to point out one of the things that really struck me was, and I really enjoyed about the book, was the sense of place. These are real Arizona stories.
Mm-hmm.
You talk about your upbringing, your dad, and you and Rhonda meeting. Correct me if I'm wrong here, Anglo woman, Latino man, two very different cultures coming together. Describe that.
Two very different cultures. We met as a family, packing food for kids who usually don't have enough food on the weekend. So that's how we met. And I always say our first date was at a SB 1070 protest. So that was our first date. So, it only had to go up from there. We just were able to blend our cultures, mine into hers, hers into mine. We're making tamales this Sunday as a family. It has been amazing to just be able to both absorb both of our cultures and find our own space in all of that.
Let's jump ahead to the COVID diagnosis in 2020. Were you and Rhonda flying to DC together?
We flew to DC together, and as I mentioned in the book, she needed to have surgery. But before she had surgery, she wanted to see our daughter Megan, because from here on out, we don't know if she's pulling out of a surgery because she had a pulmonary embolism and a collapsed lung. So every surgery from here on out is a crapshoot. So we wanted to make sure that we saw her before this last surgery. And we took all our precautions, but we ended up getting COVID in Washington, D.C.
And you got COVID,
mm-hmm.
and it was pretty bad. You were intubated, and there's a picture in the book of you intubated in a hospital bed, Rhonda looking on in what appears to be a Zoom.
Yes.
Did you know how seriously ill you were at that time?
Not at the time, because I was not going to go to the hospital. It wasn't until Dr. Amish Shah, who was serving with me in the legislature, gave me a call and said I needed to get a pulse oximeter. So I did, and when I told him the number, I had no context around it, so I said, it's 78. He says, I need you to get to the ER now. You're going to probably get put on a ventilator. That's when I knew it was serious. And then I later asked the doctors. Doctor says I may not have woken up the next day had I not gone to the hospital.
And you found out later on a certain scale, you were at the high end of being very likely.
Oh, yeah.
To pass.
Yeah, you know, I write in the book that at one point, Johns Hopkins, I ended up at Johns Hopkins. Johns Hopkins called Rhonda and said, hey, we have a priest on the floor and we'd like to administer last rites. And Rhonda calls my seatmate, Diego Espinosa, and he says, because Rhonda's like, I don't know what to do here. And Diego tells her, he's a fighter. Don't let them do that. So she told him, no last rites. He's going to make it.
Your story was picked up by the local media, as I noted, and you have some things to say in the book about how that was presented. What's your feeling,
you know,
about that coverage?
At the time, I don't think a politician had died from COVID. And President Trump at the time went to the hospital with COVID at the same time I did. But he obviously got better really quickly. And I think what was happening was there was a death watch because, again, no politician had died from COVID. And I think they were sort of like, you know, on that, let's see if he goes. And then now we've got this story of a elected official passing from COVID. And that's what I think was happening. So Rhonda...
So you thought that's how the story was being framed?
I think it
almost
was.
Like a death watch.
Right, because Rhonda, you know, she had her phone. She could not answer a call. There was calls coming in from congressional members, senatorial members. Vice President Biden at the time gave her a call. So she had to answer every single call that came in. And hopefully it wasn't the call. So, and a lot of those calls were reporters, hey, can we get you on? And to her credit, she did every TV and radio request that came to her, and she was a champ, and she was still getting over her own COVID. So she would do an interview, fall asleep, get up, do the next interview, fall asleep again.
Wow, pretty tough.
Oh, yeah.
Well, Lorenzo Sierra, thank you so much for joining us. The book is Fight Like Hell. Wish you and Rhonda a happy Merry Christmas, happy holidays.
Thank you very much.
And that's our show for this week. Thanks very much to all of our guests. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you back here after New Year's for the start of a new session of the legislature and the road to Decision 2026, the midterm elections. Until then, happy holidays and a happy and healthy New Year.